Hi, Kichu here. Volt. Empowered by surging currents, this frame bends electricity to his will. Exerting incredible speeds and utility, Volt is the fastest frame around. Utilizing his powers, he's able to go ranged or on the melee front alike. His abilities provide a massive speed boost and possibility of defensive play as well. Ultimately, he's able to control the battlefield and bring enemies to their knees. Although Volt is not as popular as Ashe, Frost, or Excalibur, he definitely does not lack the capabilities of doing endgame missions. He has one of the best utility skill sets in the game, and just like Ashe, all of his powers serve a unique purpose and can be used in a variety of situations. Alternatively to Frost, Vauban, or other crowd control frames, Volt is capable of delivering massive crowd control as well as providing good protection and buffs to his teammates. In this video, I'll show you the build I used for Volt that has great crowd control, which allows him to do endgame content. This is Incapacitating Overload Volt. Volt has a high shield pool, 450 at rank 30 and 1110 with redirection on. Since he doesn't have a lot of armor, and although he is melee viable for this build, Arcane Barrier will increase your chances of survival if your shield gets damaged, which is a fairly rare occurrence, and this arcane set is not a requirement, but it does provide an additional layer of protection. This build focuses on very high crowd control capabilities with good efficiency and decent strength, energy siphon and aura for energy regeneration, handspring in the Exilis. When facing infested or Grineer units, you get knocked down quite often. Cunning Drift is also an option here, but it provides minimal increase on top of the high 235% power range you already have. Redirection for high shields as a secondary main survivability stat. Stretch and overextended for very high power range, giving very good crowd control capabilities. Streamline and fleeting expertise for better power efficiency. Transient fortitude for power strength. This also gives decent movement and melee attack speed when speed is used. Primed continuity for longer power duration. Lastly, capacitance augment for Volt's overload ability that gives overshields depending on damage done to each unit with overload. This build provides a lot of overshields and you're going to be maxed out on them all the time. This is the reason why your actual shields are a secondary measure of survival together paired up with Arcane Barrier, which like I mentioned previously is not necessary because of overshields you will be getting. Weapon choice is up to you. Since enemies will be under crowd control most of the time, they will not be moving. It will be easy to land shots with weapons such as bows or sniper rifles. Ideally, weapons that are capable of endgame content will be suited best. As far as melee weapons go, Legion is a powerhouse. Primed pressure point for base damage, condition overload for extra melee damage based on status count on the enemy. This also synergizes very well with overload. Drifting contact for extra status chance. Life strike for health recovery when you do drop from toxin damage going against infested or from slash procs from other factions. Volcanic edge and voltaic strike for radiation damage. Vicious frost for cold damage. These three elemental mods along with drifting contact will bring up your status to 96%. Lastly, primed reach, which gives great utility in combat. This setup gives you radiation and cold damage. Legion has a special passive ability. Whenever you proc a status effect on an enemy, for 5 seconds you get 100% extra toxin damage. The toxin damage combines together with the elemental mod you have on your weapons, and since you already have radiation, it combines together with cold, providing viral damage. This gives you a radiation viral damage combination that can mow down very high level enemies and heavy units in seconds. For focused traits, Zansari will be the best option. You don't need to level Void Pulse, as that will only increase the cooldown time and delay your passive bonuses for the mission. You will need to max Void Pulse Mastery and Energy Overflow. Void Pulse Mastery will reduce the cooldown on Void Pulse by up to 60 seconds. Energy Overflow will grant up to 4 energy regeneration per second for the remainder of the mission after using the focus power. Pairing that up with Energy Siphon, you end up with almost 5 energy per second throughout the whole mission. This Zansari setup requires a total of 800,000 focus points, which doesn't really take that long to get. With this setup, your Void Pulse cooldown will be 165 seconds, so you will have to wait 2.5 minutes to use it. Provided energy regeneration will allow you to use your powers frequently and keep your overshields up at all times. When starting a mission, you will have to wait for your focus power cooldown. Depending on the mission type, you may want to use different powers. When you jump in, you will be able to use Overload right away, building up your initial overshields. Using Electric Shield only is viable as well. This works better in mobile defense and defensive missions where you don't move around as much. Overload's crowd control duration depends on how fast it deals its potential damage to enemies. Fighting against high-level units, since they have a lot of armor, means that electricity damage won't really do much. However, that will allow you to utilize Overload's full duration, in this case over 10 seconds each time you use it. If you use Zansari's focus power in the mission, this means that you can keep up Overload's crowd control indefinitely, as you will recover enough energy on your own without pickups for your next Overload cast before the previous one runs out. This also makes you take barely any damage and keep up your overshields at maximum value of 2310. If you're playing in a squad, overshields will be split amongst all allies, and since you have very high power range, your teammates will pretty much always receive the benefit, which will greatly increase squishy frames such as Nova or Banshee survivability by a lot. Having neutral power strength also gives good stats on the speed buff, 48% attack speed increase on melee weapons, which eliminates the need for mods such as Fury or Berserker and allows for more elemental damage mods to increase the status chance of your weapon, as well as reload speed, which is a niche but a nice bonus nonetheless for weapons such as Supra, which has slow reload speed. Electric Shield is a great ability for defending objectives, as well as amplifying damage done to enemies. Any projectiles passing through the shield gain 50% extra electricity damage and 200% critical damage. Electricity damage effect can also be stacked if you put up multiple shields, although it is not very efficient unless you're playing with an energy vampire trinity in the squad. With Zansari activated, you can pick up the shield and still recover energy for the most part. Shock is also a good ability and provides quick crowd control. This can be especially useful against Grineer ramparts and heavy or dangerous units. Since it can be cast with one hand, you can utilize this power while firing your weapon or running, which is very useful when moving in between objectives or against high priority targets that spawn after Overload has been used. There are alternative arcanes to choose from for this build. Sacrificing the extra survivability barrier provides, you can get Arcane Avenger that will add 30% additive critical hit chance to your weapons. Pairing it up with Electric Shield, which boosts your critical damage by 200%, gives very good synergy. However, since you will be behind the shield, it will be much more difficult to get the Avenger proc by getting hit. Volt has augments for his first and second abilities. Shock Trooper adds electricity damage to your allies. It is a nice damage addition and you can use it frequently in missions due to Zansari's energy overflow. Shocking Speed emits electricity damage on units which you pass while using speed, and most importantly, emits a guaranteed electricity proc. It works fairly well playing against the infested with a melee-based playstyle. Volt is a very adaptive frame, capable of defending objectives. It has very strong crowd control abilities, powers which provide crit buffs to allies, as well as an additional layer of protection from augments. Capable of taking up melee or range-based play, as well as fulfilling crowd control, supporting, or damage roles. Volt is one of the most versatile frames around. This is Incapacitating Overload Volt.